Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order the first Napa LAFCO meeting of year 25 to order, February 3rd, 2025 at approximately 2:07. I would ask people to stand to join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Chair, roll call.
I'm sorry, roll call. Yeah, yeah, it says it right there, black and white. Roll call. I want
all
to get to the
right.
pledge. All right.
All right.
Roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Vice Chair Painter,
Here.
Commissioner Cottrell, Commissioner Moeller,
Here.
Commissioner Ramos,
Here.
Commissioner Gallagher,
Here.
Commissioner Kahn, welcome Commissioner Oro,
Here.
and Chair Leary.
Here.
We have a quorum, and thank you for being here.
All right, let's try this again. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we're going to move to item number 3, and it's the administering the oath of office for our new commissioner, David Oro. And our council will. So, David, stand up, please. Mm-hmm.
We rehearsed to do this in the well, right?
We did. This is the spot. Please raise your right hand. I, David Oro, do solemnly swear or affirm
I, David Oro, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties of which I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to move on to approval of agenda. I'll ask for, are there any changes or to the agenda?
Good afternoon, Chair Leary. Yes, I would like to suggest that the commission make one slight scheduling change and move the item C8C above 8B, because I know that we have members in the audience for 8C, and I feel like we can take that before B today.
Any discussion? All right,
Moeller seconds.
thank you. It's been call for the vote.
Aye.
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 All right, motion passed. We're moving item C up to A, and then we'll follow accordingly. Yeah.
Above B.
Yeah. Just before B. Mm-hmm. All right. Moving on to action items here.
Oh,
Well, no,
sure.
public comment, yes. All right, I should read the agenda. Are there any comments from the public to anything that is not on the agenda? Any public comment? No? All right. Let's move on to consent items. Is there any items on the consent calendar that any of the commissioners would like to pull?
Moeller, make a motion to approve.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion approved. Now we can get down to action items, business. All right. We're going to approve, well, no, we did consent. All right. Public hearings. Any member of the public may address the commission with respect to the scheduling of a public hearing item. All right. First item is consider approval of an outside service agreement authorizing the city of Napa to provide water service to 7855 St. Helena Highway and associate findings, sequel findings. Ready, staff?
Staff is ready.
All right.
Thank you, Chairman Leary and members of the commission. Good afternoon, everybody. This item will be considered as part of a noticed public hearing as required under state law, and staff complied with all requirements, including a mailed notice to all landowners and registered voters residing within 300 feet of the affected territory. The City of Napa requests fire suppression water, an extension of a fire suppression water line for the Napa Valley Grape Growers' new office to be located at the previous Oakville Pump Station at 7855 St. Helena Highway, and this requires LAFCO authorization under California Government Code Section 56133. The City of Napa's new Utilities Director and a familiar face to us all, Joy Eldridge, is here today, and so are representatives for the grape growers to address any questions or comments. For those unfamiliar with the Napa Valley Grape Growers, they are a 501c3 nonprofit representing over 600 local grape growers who are invested in cultivating viticultural excellence and environmental stewardship for the Napa Valley. Their goal is to educate grape growers and advocate for the sustainability of the industry with an emphasis on responsible conservation practices. All of that is directly in line with one of LAFCO's core interests, which is the protection of agricultural lands and the prevention of their premature conversion to urban uses. It is important to note that this property already has a pre-existing domestic water line, which is grandfathered under Code Section 56133. All that's being asked for is a new line specifically for fire suppression. The staff report includes maps of the affected territory, which is surrounded by several other properties with existing City of Napa water outside service agreements. This is provided for context purposes, as it shows the city's current request would not set a precedent. In fact, the city has over 2,000 existing outside water service agreements throughout Napa Valley. So the request today is consistent with the historical patchwork of municipal service provision in Napa County. The affected territory is zoned under the Ag Preserve, and the entire parcel is only about 3.5 acres in size, which restricts any additional future development potential. And if the city's request is authorized today, the city will meter this new connection and carefully monitor flows to ensure consistency with the underlying need for enhanced fire suppression flows. One key consideration is that the outside service agreement must be for purposes of responding to an existing or impending threat to the public health or safety of either residents or the public occupying the affected territory. And in this case, the intent is to protect the public from the ever-present risk of wildfires. So staff believes this situation meets the letter of the law as well as the intent of the law. And the last key comment I'll make is that the requested action is exempt from CEQA under 3 separate sections of the California Code of Regulations, as confirmed by legal counsel and described further in the draft resolution included as attachment 1 to the staff report. Staff believes the city's request is reasonable and would contribute to local agriculture by helping the grape growers find what is hopefully their permanent home in an ideal location that allows them to best achieve their goals related to enabling agriculture to flourish in the Napa Valley. With all of this in mind, staff recommends the commission adopt the draft resolution included as attachment 1, which would authorize the city's request to extend a new fire suppression line to the affected territory. I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have. Thank you.
Any questions from the commissioners? Or would like to open up a public hearing, have speakers.
Oh, yes, apologies. We do need to follow the public hearing procedures as described on page 1 of the staff report.
So is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Rob Anklin. I'm an attorney representing the grape growers, and I'll be very brief, but I did want to say thank you. I couldn't give you any more background that Brendan didn't already give you, so I'll leave all of his great remarks to stand for the project. With me today is Caleb Mosley, Executive Director of Grape Growers, and so we just really appreciate all of Brendan Freeman's work and Joy Eldridge's work to get us to this point, and we're here to answer any questions, but we feel like Brendan answered them all, so thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other speakers? All right, return it to commissioners. Commission.
You might want to close the public hearing.
Oh, yeah, oh, that's right. I closed the public hearing, and we call for a vote for that?
No.
No, all right. And I open it up for commissioners. All right?
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to say that this request was supported unanimously by City Council, and want to reiterate what Brendan has already said, which is that the property already has existing domestic water service. I think the staff report was very thorough in terms of describing the 7 specific factors that we need to consider as LAFCO in making this decision. I certainly wouldn't expect that this request would result in any new growth or development, and I'm supportive of this project, of this request.
Thank you. Any other commissioners?
Just briefly, we've done this many times, especially at some tasting rooms along Oakville and Rutherford, so certainly nothing new here. So, especially for fire suppressant,
All right.
how could we not approve
Yes.
this, quite frankly?
All right. All right, well, we call for the vote. A motion?
I move to adopt the resolution of the Local Agency Formation Commission of Napa County making determinations to authorize an outside water service agreement approval here.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Let's move on to action item number 8. So number A is proposed Penny Lane. Number 6, reorganization and associated CEQA findings. Staff, please, report.
Thank you, Chair Leary. This item involves a landowner-initiated proposal for annexation of their half-acre parcel located at 2133 Penny Lane to the City of Napa, along with concurrent detachment from County Service Area Number 4. The adjacent portion of public right-of-way along Penny Lane is also included to ensure that that part of the street is included in the city's ongoing street maintenance work and programs. The applicant is here in the audience today and available to answer any questions if the commission has any. And now, under state law, this proposal is considered a reorganization, which is defined as any proposal involving at least 2 concurrent boundary changes that involve 1 or more local agencies. And so we have annexation to the City of Napa, detachment from County Service Area Number 4. That's why this is called a reorganization. And the purpose of the proposal is to allow the 1 existing residence at 2133 Penny Lane to connect to public water service. Currently, the landowner has a private on-site well, and the property is within the city's rural-urban limit line and sphere of influence. That indicates that both the city and LAFCO have already agreed in concept to the property being annexed in the foreseeable future. Notably, staff mailed out a letter to other neighboring landowners or properties that are eligible for annexation and also located on Penny Lane, and invited them to consider joining the proposal. This was done for purposes of offering a convenient and cost-effective method for other landowners to be included, but unfortunately there were no takers this time. Staff will continue to do this. Any annexation proposal that comes our way, we look for opportunities to expand the boundary to realize efficiencies. The applicant has no development plans at this time, although the property could be split into 2 residential lots in the future based on existing city general plan land use designation and pre-zoning. And in addition, the applicant indicated a desire to keep the on-site well for landscape irrigation only, and that would further suggest that future development of the affected territory is not anticipated in the foreseeable future. The proposal is exempt from CEQA under 2 separate sections of the California Code of Regulations as confirmed by council and further described in the draft resolution. So with all of this in mind, staff recommends the commission adopt the draft resolution included as attachment 1, which would approve the proposal, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from commissioners? Eve?
If this parcel were to be in the city, annexed into the city, it's my understanding that you could not have a well and a water hookup. Is that correct?
So the question is about well to continue after annexation and hook up to city water. I was under the impression that the landowner would be allowed to keep the well. Unfortunately, it looks like Joy Eldridge is already gone. She left. She would have been the right person to ask. Does anybody else, perhaps Commissioner Painter may know from her experience, but I thought that they would get...
Yeah, I believe they are allowed to keep the well, but if, for domestic service, if for use of water in the home, it would be with City of Napa Water. Or if they look to expand the home, and the domestic service would be provided by city water. But landscaping, for example, could continue to use the existing well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioners? Would we like to hear from the applicant? Would the applicant like to speak?
Hi, I just wanted to thank you for considering it, and yeah, I have lived on that property on and off since I was 10, and I inherited it from my family, and the water is less than lovely, so thank you for your consideration today.
All right. If no further questions, I'd like to entertain a motion.
I would be happy to make a motion to move approval of the request as proposed.
Second.
Motion has been approved, moved and second. Call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Any abstentions, no nays? All right, unanimous. All right, let's move on. We're going to move item 4C up. So this is a draft. Is that, oh. Yeah, all right, sorry about that. We're moving item C up to, well, it's next, we're calling it next. Draft request for the proposal for City of St. Helena Municipal Service Review. All right, staff?
Thank you, Chairman. This item responds to the Commission's request from the December 2024 meeting to see a draft request for proposals to obtain a private consultant that would help us prepare the scheduled municipal service review on the City of St. Helena. And we are fortunate to have St. Helena's City Manager, Anil Comello, and his Assistant City Manager, April Mitz, with us in the audience today to potentially assist with this process and answer any questions the Commission may have. Attachment 1 to the staff report is a relatively generic draft RFP, short for Request for Proposals. And this includes a scope of work and a sample professional services agreement. Now, something that is not specifically called out in the draft RFP or staff report, but perhaps should be, is the fact that there are 2 state laws that are scheduled to expire at the end of this year. So they are pilot programs that are codified under California Government Code sections 56133.5 and 56133.6. I know those are not in your packet today, but they relate to outside service agreements. And so we just approved an outside service agreement involving the city of Napa as part of item 7A. These pilot programs would allow for outside service agreements under unique circumstances, and one of the requirements to use these pilot programs is that LAFCO must first adopt a municipal service review with determinations related to the pilot programs and their potential use. In the past, I have had discussions with staff at St. Helena. This was years ago, and there was an indication that these pilot programs may be beneficial, but nothing ever came to fruition. However, there is an opportunity, one last try to see if it fits and to see if we want to implement either of these pilot programs before the year is up. So with this in mind, staff welcomes the Commission's thoughts on adding a discussion of this into the RFP, which would require the consultant to look into opportunities to use these pilot programs. The bottom line is that there may be an existing development outside the city's boundary that would benefit from enhanced public services, and there may not be a route to do that at the moment unless we use the pilot programs, although no specific project comes to mind. Now, the goal is to release the RFP this week with or without changes as desired by the Commission. The draft RFP in front of you today invites consultants to submit proposals through March 7th with top candidates to be interviewed during the week of March 17th. Staff would then return at the Commission's April 7th meeting to recommend a preferred consultant and authorize the signing of a contract which would allow work to begin immediately. With all of that in mind, I am happy to answer any questions the Commission may have, and also happy to work on revisions to the draft RFP as desired. Thank you.
Brendan, will this delay the, how long would it delay the MSR?
So is the question related to changing the RFP?
Yes.
This could be done, I can add that in tomorrow, and it's no delay.
All right. So we can approve it with changes.
Yes, and if there's an interest in, as this, just an idea, if the chair would like to work with staff just to ensure quality control on that, that is an option. Or you can entrust this to staff, and I promise it will all be accurate and legal.
All right. Any comments from commissioners?
I have a couple comments. And have you? So you've chosen the consultant who you're probably going to pick, or you're going to send it out right now for RFPs?
Correct. First, we send the RFP out. Consultants hopefully will submit proposals, and then we pick one.
So are you estimating that we'll probably have all this complete by the end of 2025?
Certainly, that would be the hope and the goal.
Okay.
I cannot say how realistic that is. We would need to see what the proposals are.
Yeah.
Perhaps we want to emphasize timing in the RFP to say we want a complete product by, we would need it to be done by October. That would be our October commission meeting. That would then give St. Helena time, if appropriate, to ask us permission to use one of the pilot programs before they expire.
Right, because a lot of the information is, should be pretty available in the city of St. Helena. They can work together with that. But if we can shoot for having a consultant, putting that in the RFP, that's why we'd like a complete package, but then we'd have the December meeting to actually review it. So maybe even a little sooner, because these are a little. There will be some. I'm not sure if they're it's going to be any recommendation for changing the SOI, I would say that we would also like them to, evaluate those, the specific codes from 56133 in terms of their recommendation for any outside service agreement in consultation together with the staff of St. Helena. I don't want them to make a recommendation that, St. Helena is not would like to support. So I would put that in there as well. And I think I know the last time that we've done one for St. Helena has been quite a while. So, and I know I worked on all the policies for the MSR. So also making sure that they're familiar with the current policies that we have on MSRs. I'd steer them towards that as well in the RFP. So those are my initial thoughts.
Thank you.
I have a question. Thank you. I have a question and a comment. My first question is just to confirm that looking back at our budget, that the cost of this MSR comes from 52,310, which is consulting service line item. Is that correct?
That is correct,
Okay.
Commissioner Painter.
Okay.
Thank you.
So obviously, whatever framework the RFP goes out in needs to fit within what we've budgeted for. And then my second comment on the pilot programs, these MSRs tend to last for a number of years. So, I think we want to try to approach it from the perspective of being a little bit more generic so that, as pilot programs or projects may change over the years, that it remains a usable document and not specific to something that's expiring. I'd rather not write something that, is going to be out of date before we even put it to print. So as they approach that issue, I would just hope they approach it with the sense of maybe a little more expansive language, looking at future pilot projects as well.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I thank you for flagging the potential window here for these pilot programs. I think it's, in general, better to be inclusive of options. So I like this idea of building that language in. Would like to hear from the city staff here if there is, any feeling about the inclusion of these. And I appreciate Commissioner Painter's point that we want to have this document be as flexible and general for the years ahead.
Can I just make one quick comment? So CKH does say that these MSRs should be done every 5 years as needed. So it's I don't know. It's not a big timeline. This has been well over, I think, 12 now or something. But I think the timeline will probably be a little bit shorter in the future, I would imagine.
I would hope so.
Thank you. Just really quickly before Anil speaks. So in reading the LAFCO and water system consolidation report that was also in the agenda, it talked about making sure that MSRs look at a consolidation feasibility study. I didn't know if that is something that would be relevant here, but if we're going to try to implement some of the recommended sort of best practices or whatnot from that report, I just wanted to flag that as something that I didn't see in the RFP. I don't know if it's relevant to this particular RFP, but something that maybe we'd always want to look at when we're doing an RFP to see if that would be appropriate for a given project.
I agree with Commissioner. We, what was it now, 3 years ago with this report, or has it been longer? And I think it would be appropriate that we include that in any of the MSRs that will be coming forward. So any other thoughts from commissioners about that? No? All right. Can we hear from the applicant? No, or, yes.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say thank you Commissioner Miller for understanding and being sensitive to our concerns and being asking the staff to include our comments and feedback into the process. That's very important. Truly appreciate it. Second is, before I answer your question, this doesn't happen very often. I mean, it's supposed to happen every 5 years, and I understand we've been late, perhaps by several years. I don't know how long I'll be as the city manager, given that I'm late in my tenure, and since this takes a lot of work, if you could delay it for a few more years, that'd be even nicer. But seriously, I don't know enough about the pilot program, and I wish I'd heard about it before I got here. So I don't know if I'm really educated enough to be able to comment on that. It appears to be a sound proposal. Of course, whatever you choose to include, we will endeavor to implement. But I don't know if I can really comment on that at this point.
Can I just make a quick
Thank you.
comment on that? Can help you with that a little bit. So both of these pilot programs were laws that Bill Dodd actually worked with in the state legislature. And one of them is actually very specific, which is very unusual for LAFCO, just to St. Helena. The other one only applies to Napa County and San Bernardino. And both of those make specific exceptions for extending outside services outside your jurisdictional boundaries. So, and the words that have been amended into CKH are pretty minimal. So maybe staff can help direct you to those exact bills, which will delineate a little more clearly what is allowed and not allowed for St. Helena in both those two 56133 subsections. That might help.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So, as I understand it, then this would allow St. Helena to provide services outside the city's boundaries, where currently those customers or potential customers currently do not receive services, but that doesn't require them to be annexed into the city. Is that correct?
No, it provides an exception,
Ah.
so they don't have to be. However,
Don't have to be annexed.
They
Sorry.
do not have to be annexed. However, that would never preclude you from changing an SOI. That would be a totally separate action, changing your SOI with annexation. Is that correct, Attorney Bell? I always like to verify with my attorney.
Get my microphone to work. Yeah, that is correct. Those are separate processes. So approval for the extra jurisdictional service provision is a separate process from your sphere of influence, and then any future application for annexation.
Yeah, there's been a lot of conversation, obviously, in our city recently about annexations, and I can just say that as a city manager, I wouldn't want to necessarily extend services without being able to annex those properties.
That's why reading those bills will be very helpful to you.
Indeed, thank you so very much.
Very
Appreciate it.
welcome.
Any other comments? Staff?
I'll just add a little bit of extra context that those bills were, in fact, developed specifically in recognition of how hard it is to annex lands that are designated or currently used for an agricultural purpose, which is quite a bit of Napa County. If you look at the general plan land use map, it's almost all green, which means agriculture, and that means generally off limits for sphere of influence additions and annexations. So both pilot programs are intended to be a tool that would allow for services to be provided where needed without annexing, which City of St. Helena may not be interested in, which ultimately, if the city's not interested in using the pilot programs, they won't be used. This is not something that LAFCO can force upon them. So hope that context helps.
Right. Thank you. So what we would do now is introduce some language regarding the pilot programs into the,
They're already in CKH.
okay, but in terms of the MSR.
So staff would recommend that, I'm happy to draft language to add into the RFP.
Yes.
And also the scope of work. I'll make sure it's thorough. And If the chair or if the commission has another idea for a quality control plan, if you want to take a look before it goes out, happy to work with whoever that may be.
And also on consolidation, some language regarding that.
The consolidation, that would be, I think that's more related to another item on the agenda.
Okay.
And, it was brought up, Commissioner Gallagher brought it up as a reference for the discussion that there's a water consolidation report it's a separate agenda item, so not part of this discussion. Or,
Well, actually, I was thinking that maybe it could inform this discussion because we are letting an RFP. So the recommendation in the report was that you include a consolidation feasibility study in your RFPs.
Yeah.
So that's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
thank you, and apologies for misunderstanding.
Right. So what would that look like? Would we put language in there in the RFP regarding that?
Yes, that would just be another bullet point. I'm not sure where exactly it would go right now, but I'll take a look and add either a bullet point comment where we list priority issues to keep in mind or to look into, and that would be one that I can make prominent.
And if that's something that we would do with every MSR and every proposal, I think maybe the commission would like to think about that or discuss that. We don't have to do it right now, but future.
Yeah, let's see how this one goes and
Yeah.
kind of what kind of questions or issues kind of come up, because
Right.
I can see with some MSRs, it might not have, especially the ones that we might do for Napa-San or something like that, a special district. So
Yeah.
I think it might not be one size fits all necessarily. Yeah, and the only reason I think that we're probably all in agreement with putting the RFP information in about the pilot programs are we might get a consultant to do this who's, as I mentioned, both these pilot programs, one of them is only related to Napa and San Bernardino counties, and the other one's only related to St. Helena, so they may not be on their radar.
Yeah.
And so we just wanted to, oh, by the way, this kind of applies to St. Helena with both of these pilot programs. So
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on a couple of thoughts. First, Commissioner Painter's point about let's make sure we're keeping this RFP with the scope of what the budgeted amount is for it. And second, I do like the idea of including some reference to the concept of a consolidation feasibility study in this one. I agree with your point. It may not be right for everyone, but I think here it does make sense. And I think it's a great piece of context to have RFPs in general that kind of spend a little time contemplating the work that this LAFCO is already in the process of doing.
Any other thoughts? What are the next steps?
RFP.
What I have heard is the next steps would be that staff will add a couple of sections to the RFP, something about the pilot programs where appropriate, and the feasibility of any potential changes such as consolidation. Those will be built into the RFP, and I've not heard anyone speak up and say they want to review that before it goes out. So that's a piece perhaps to discuss. Otherwise, staff will release the RFP with the revisions. I believe that's this Friday, February 7th.
Yeah.
And can you also provide St. Helena with the two DOD bills that relate to the outside service
Absolutely, I will.
pilot programs? Thanks.
Yes, we'll do that.
Yeah. Well, I feel we can trust staff to complete that. So now, do we call for a vote on this?
Yes, a vote would be ideal unless
All right.
legal counsel has another idea.
Nice. And the professional service agreement.
I'll make a motion that
motion.
we approve sending out an RFP for the St. Helena MSR.
I have a second.
Second.
Should we say with the changes or the?
as the changes proposed.
Yes, all right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, let's move on. Now we're going on to strategic plan, work program updates and possible direction.
All right, well, thank you, Chairman Leary. So this item was requested at the December meeting, and there was a similar item presented at that meeting that let the commission know that staff is struggling to maintain pace with the adopted work program and strategic plan, and that relates to a prolonged absence in a key staff position. The current strategic plan is included as attachment 1, and the current work program is included as attachment 2. That work program version is the one that was adopted back in, I want to say, June of last year. I know there was discussion at the last meeting about changing it. You don't see those changes in this attachment today, but certainly if the commission wants to see formal changes to the actual document, we can do that, but that would take a separate action. Notably, some changes to our organization's strategic initiatives are needed to address that noted absence of the assistant executive officer, which that absence is now going on 8 months, which has severely restricted staff capacity. And as a reminder, our strategic plan, included as attachment 1, includes 3 key goals that relate to the 2020 water and wastewater MSR, which is complete, the pending fire and emergency medical services MSR, which we have a consultant working on, and then also LAFCO independence. That third item, we spent a good deal of time last year exploring and deduced we are already an independent agency, and there are additional steps that are still being worked on to take a look at updating our agreement with the county, but nothing terribly significant there. Now, the work program outlines schedules for key activities such as our MSRs and sphere of influence studies, and it generally follows from the strategic plan. Now, some key projects that are listed in the work program and have stalled, or in some cases are past due already, include aforementioned fire and EMS MSR. There's been a data gap with that one involving dispatch data, which I have personally escalated to City of Napa's city manager, Steve Potter, because we need that data. We cannot wrap up this report without it. And so hopefully a draft report will be completed sooner than later and presented to the commission before you know it, but still waiting and seeing. Another key item on the work program is the Napa Sanitation District Sphere of Influence update, which is contemplated to be an in-house project that staff would complete on our own. That one I'll return to in a moment. Next item up is the County Service Area number 4 MSR and SOI study, which we agreed at the last meeting to postpone that one until we have a bit more capacity. And then the next big item is the St. Helena MSR that we just talked about. So don't believe there's anything more to say on that one since we've authorized the release of an RFP to get going immediately. And so going back to the Napa Sanitation District Sphere of Influence study, this is a project that needs an immediate plan. Staff believes that this is a project that can still be completed in-house, as much of the preliminary scoping work has been done, and the process of handing this one over to a consultant would be costly both in terms of scheduling and budget considerations. Nevertheless, the commission is invited to discuss this project and any other scheduled projects and provide whatever appropriate direction to staff that you may desire. Now, another item that the commission requested as part of the December meeting is an opportunity to review the UC Berkeley report on water system consolidations and LAFCO. That report is included as attachment 3 and was also already presented to the commission in June, but we have at least one new face here with alternate Commissioner Oro, who I'm sure never saw that report. And he saw it last night. That's good. Related to this report is a draft joint legislative proposal included as attachment 4, which has been developed by a team comprised of one of the key authors of the UC Berkeley report, legislative analysts, water policy coordinators, and other LAFCO executive officers from throughout the state. The intent of the letter is to empower the state and LAFCOs to be more effective in achieving the state's interest in consolidating and remedying problems with small public water systems. Some of them are called mutual water companies, and others are small non-governmental water systems that LAFCO has no oversight over. But should they fail, it becomes quite problematic. So LAFCOs throughout the state are becoming more proactive to hopefully prevent failure of these small systems. And one way to do that is consolidate them with larger systems if possible. And so now the joint letter is not fully baked quite yet, as there are still some unanswered questions and concerns. But I personally agreed to co-sign the letter in concept, as I believe things are headed in the right direction, and the impact on staff to continue participating in these meetings and remain a co-signer are insignificant at this time. Really only takes about an hour a month out of my schedule at the moment. And the commission is welcome to offer any feedback on the letter or continuing to be a part of this. Happy to accept whatever feedback the commission desires on that. And finally, the last topic as part of this item is the next strategic planning session, because our current strategic plan is set to expire at the end of this fiscal year, at the end of June. So we need a new strategic plan that sets our direction over the next 2 to 3 years. And so staff is recommending that the commission discuss its preference in terms of timing, location, and whether or not you want to hire an outside facilitator, or one option is to rely on staff to facilitate. And I believe it would make sense to schedule this for sometime in the second half of 2025 after a final budget has been approved. But certainly there are other options that may be more aligned with the commission's collective preferences and availability. And there's nothing in state law or local policy that says that we shall do strategic planning, so this is a voluntary effort, but it's a best practice and should be done regularly. So with all of that in mind, staff welcomes any questions, comments, concerns, and/or formal direction on these items as the commission sees fit.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that update. And there's a lot here. There's a lot on LAFCO staff's plate, and you're understaffed right now. So those are all things I'm thinking about as we look at this laundry list. First, I just want to make a comment about the letter you mentioned. I'm in full support of that. I appreciate that, A, it's not taking a ton of your time, and B, this question of consolidation of water services throughout the county is big and thorny, and I think really having statewide regional partners who are looking at, the legislative fix, I think is a good way for us to stay involved without draining more resources on questions that may turn out to be academic. I mean, I think Commissioner Ramos, you and I were talking about the challenge of water in far reaches of the county, that we may never be able to do some consolidation, but we want to keep plugging away at it. So I like this participation as a way of keeping momentum there. On the question, that just the other comment I wanted to make on doing a new strategic plan, I believe in strategic plans. I think they're a good idea. I feel like we spent a lot of time last year on that, and we have a lot of actual deliverables that we want to help out our municipal service agencies with. So I am inclined to not embark on a big, broad, expansive strategic plan process when there's a lot of just work that we want to get done. So I'm not saying that we abandon it. I'm just wondering if there's a way we can streamline it. If there are things in the existing one that we haven't finished or items. I mean, I think this work plan is a really great list of the things we want to be working on. So maybe we set some meeting where we go over that, but do it in a more streamlined fashion. Those are my thoughts at this moment.
Chair, I have some thoughts too. So I'm just going to follow up on Commissioner Cottrell. Not being down an important staff member is really very overarching in this work plan, in my opinion. So, and until that gets resolved, it is what it is. So I also basically think delaying a strategic plan, adding something additional on our list right now is probably a little premature. We definitely have a lot of stuff we haven't done. And so I think, one of the things I'd really like to see too is the island workshop, really kind of come back. And, also the MSR that we did do on water and wastewater. I think, looking at that and, making some little steps about that instead of just, we never wanted to put it on the shelf and just have to let it collect dust. So, and then in terms of this letter, which is fine that you signed, but I spent quite a bit of time looking at this, and my top level is what they're really asking for is some change in some CKH law, giving LAFCO more powers. And I'm telling you, I think by doing a lot of legislation work on Cal LAFCO, you're going to find the appetite in the legislature not agreeable with that at all. But with that being said, I think that some of the information in here is something that could be rolled into actions on the water and the wastewater MSR that we have. In that, what I found very interesting, because I never knew until I read all this, is all the roles and responsibilities that the CPUC has, the roles and responsibilities that the State Water Resources Control Board has, what LAFCO has, and I suggest that we just start talking to each other. Right, that right there, I think is, I would imagine that they would appreciate. It's like, oh, hi, I'm from LAFCO. Why don't we talk about this? You're doing all this important stuff, and we're doing that. Is there some places where we have some gaps here? Instead of going and having Berkeley kind of involved and thinking we're going to change, CKH, I think we just start really having good partnerships with these, I'll call them sister agencies. And so I kind of think that might be part of the whole wastewater MSR discussion. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, good comments so far. I'm just going to reiterate the fact that you're operating with really limited resources in terms of staff. So I think focusing on what's important is where you want to be. I do have a question on the NSD work. I'm assuming that would come out of staff budget because it's not a consultant item. What is the ballpark time commitment to that effort?
Really good question, Vice Chair Painter. The timing on the NSD study, I believe it is reasonable to have a draft report ready for the June commission meeting. I've already spent well over a year meeting with representatives of the community that's interested in expanding public sewer service, as well as the Napa Sanitation District's general manager, Andrew Damron. We talk regularly, and have included also county staff, Brian Bordona and David Morrison have joined me for meetings on this. So I believe the framework is there. It's just a matter of putting pen to paper now and putting something out there and getting it going in a more formal setting.
Okay. So it sounds to me like you're confident that at least the framework could be established, but and it's a little premature to get into the specifics of what you're doing, but my crystal ball is telling me that once this becomes a discussion item, it's going to require a lot of time and a lot of meetings and a lot of effort. So I think we want to take it in a sequential approach and not necessarily assume that we take responsibility for all of that, because we will need that partnership and commitment from, from the city of Napa, from the county, from, to be able to really take that a little bit further. So as long as our role is just sort of setting the framework on the SOI, I'm fine with that. But how it will continue, I think, is going to be a big lift. So I just want us to maybe be aware of that. And in terms of time and budget. So I'm fine to continue it for this year. We have talked a lot about the island annexation and island workshop. That's also a pretty significant amount of time. So I think if we want to do it this year, I think we should have a budget and a program so that we understand what it is, what are our expectations. Because, we don't have it on the agenda today, so I'm not going to go through my list of preliminary questions on that. But I think that's also a fairly significant time commitment. And I think it's important, and I don't want to lose sight of that, but I just want to make it clear that, if we're going to go down that road, and we're using staff to pay for that effort, if you will, rather than consultants, that it's going to require some time. And I think, those are my comments. I don't see, similar to Commissioner Cottrell, I don't see a need to hire a consultant and have a special day to completely revisit our strategic plan, but just sort of dusting off so that we understand the cost and the time commitments for what we already have in there is what personally I want to be mindful of.
I used my light, but I'm not sure if lights are in service today on a Monday. So I appreciate everyone's comments, in particular regarding having a strategic plan. I find it hard to really engage in a new strategic plan process when I actually don't feel like we accomplished much of what we set out last year. And so I think we need to be incredibly realistic in that sense. And I have a couple of suggestions that I as it relates to the work plan. I hear you on the island workshop. I, there too, don't believe anything has changed in regards to city-county positions that I am aware of that would allow a different foundation for this discussion to happen. And so until that happens, I know the last time this went around, there was a survey done. Are people interested? People were not interested into being annexed. We are all interested, but the residents that are affected are not. And so if in fact that is going to be something for us to consider, I think at the resident level, we need to engage residents first. And so I think that's a very big task that we should not be adding to 25's work plan. What I will say, a couple of things to add on the water and wastewater service, MSR. I think the workshop that we had in, was that June? I think it was June, right? Was that this last year or the year before? These years are blending to me. I'm not sure if it was a 23 or 24, but I know I was there and it was in Yountville. But I think a lot came out of that meeting from the water and wastewater service providers and telling us what they were already coordinating. And so I think our role here, without going through directives and really understanding the scope to which these service providers are able to look through consolidation, I think our greater role here is the convening of people. And I think that we would be very well served, Chair, if I may, to have an ad hoc committee of LAFCO that can meet with staff to convene and have that very realistic question posed to the managers of these water and waste water service providers and asking, What consolidation, what coordination of services have you already engaged in? And what is the reasonable next step? Because when we look at it, we come here with our regional LAFCO hats on. But, you know, when I look at Councilmember Painter and her capacity, whether Napa is ready for the next step, I mean, when I came onto the Board of Supervisors, we talked about whether Napa was ready to take on Napa Sand, and that was not a realistic. It's not that we don't see the value of it, but it simply was not realistic. And so when we look at the impending finances of each of our various jurisdictions, again, I think we can convene people, but to actually say, let's move forward and allocate money, I surely am not ready to do that. What I do say would be worth our time here and incredibly important from a LAFCO perspective is what is happening in the city of Suisun City as it relates to California Forever. California Forever has approached Suisun City to grow its boundaries to intake a portion of the California Forever holdings alongside Travis Air Force Base, which would then include LAFCO policies, which was never actually going to be the case in their proposal that was supposed to be on the ballot in 2024. I think from our perspective, when we look at, they have a slow growth ordinance, which is similar to our agricultural preserve and ag watershed and open space designations here. I think we would be very well served to be watching that carefully, to be in the room when those discussions are happening to understand how this could have an impact here to us locally. So I really think we need to stay the course on where we're at and redefine how we move forward on water, wastewater for now. And let's not forget, we have the fire EMS MSR before us, which is going to be an incredibly big lift as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramos. I think that a lot of what you said makes a lot of sense, and tracking what's happening over there is going to be important. I think the other thing that I'm not sure where it fits in, but I just want to call out the fact that we have new Board of Supervisors members, we have new city council members across the county, and I think figuring out ways that we can help with education of those new elected so that they understand how LAFCO works. And so, you know, doing an island workshop, I think, would be helpful on that front. That's a different angle than taking in properties or property owners who may be interested in annexation. So again, not wanting to add, CEO Foreman, I hope that you're hearing from everyone here, you know, that we want to streamline what you and Ms. Pratt have on your plate, because it's a lot right now. And I think there is an opportunity to do some outreach, whether it's from some sort of ad hoc or with staff, to make sure that new local electeds understand the challenges that we're facing and just what our procedure is. And this is a late shout out for the first agenda item where you clearly listed the 7 factors. And I think, you know, beating that drum a little bit is important too. I don't know where that fits in with all of this, but I do see that as part of our mission.
Chair, I did forget one item to share. I had the opportunity to meet with our state senator a couple of weeks ago in Sacramento on one of my trips up there for CSAC. And he actually did share with me some plans to introduce bills that were LAFCO related in regards to the California Forever project. And so I think we would be very well, he understands land use at a very deep level. I think he understands annexations at a very deep level, but I think we would be very well served in making sure that we foster that connection and that we are engaged to ensure that any legislation that is passed doesn't have unintended consequences to us, and to open that dialogue. So again, to that point of Commissioner Cottrell of saying we need to engage new stakeholders, I think meeting with Senator Cabaldon would be incredibly important for us.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I agree that we don't need to have a new strategic plan when we still have so much to do. So I agree with that. Where I am, and I spoke with you about this, is on islands, and I like the way you put it, Ann and Elia. Basically, nothing has changed. We put a lot of work into islands years ago, and even before that, and then we get to a point where we can't force Napa or the county or anyone to do and move forward. So I don't want to put a lot of time into it. It seems it gets down to the landowners, and if landowners are interested, maybe we talk about convening a workshop for them. I don't know if they would really even be interested in attending. My thoughts are a little bit, I would say, draconian when we have islands and they are drawing on resources from the city, but they're living in the county and they're not necessarily paying for those resources. I would charge them for the resources when the city gets there first. I think there's other ways that we may have to look at this approach this, because many of them don't want to come in because they don't want to pay the additional fees for services that they would be required to. So I think it's a hard nut to crack without a whip. And until we are, or the cities are going to say, we get there first, we charge you, but that goes into the whole agreement of, shared response and all those kinds of things. But I don't see people readily saying, yes, I want to do that. I volunteer to come into the city and I volunteer to pay more money for my services. So I'm not willing to go down that road and spend a lot of time, of staff time and commission time to discuss and talk about this when it seems to me general public people don't want to do it. So.
Can I just make a comment on some of that? Because there was a study done. We actually have some of that information. I think that's one. Well, first is that there's a couple reasons. We do spend a lot of time on, every time we meet, annexing into Napa Sand. And they're, basically around election time, there is a lot of discussion from the people that live in the county, in the islands, because they can't vote for Napa City Council and things like that. Also, there's another big proposal kind of coming up that would possibly create an island if the annexation occurred. And that is one of our jobs, is to, prevent and, bring islands in. So, maybe we just, I do still think we need a workshop. We haven't really talked about the scope of the workshop, but, having that communication and bringing everybody to the table and, really, I know a lot of people seem to think it's going to actually cost more. It won't cost because we have numbers, the people that are in the islands to move into the city. Where the cost kind of comes in is the city. But, in Napa Sand also is because, they would issue the water. But I think it's important to really kind of figure out, does water and sewer really add to the cost? Maybe not, because you've got, more people that are buying into the system. I think the true real cost would be, sidewalks and streetlights. That would be expensive. But does that really need to happen if you, are in the city? So I think just having an educational conference without trying, I don't think we're trying to, at least my intention wasn't to try to beat everybody over the head and it was like, this is all going to happen. But there's just so much misinformation out there about, you know, what it is and what it isn't, and, you know, where, you know, what's more expensive and what isn't more expensive. So, and I don't want to get into it because we haven't agendized it either, but, you know, I still think at least having a conversation instead of like, you know, cutting it off right now is probably worth a little time more at this board sometime in 2025, but that's just my opinion.
Thank you, Commissioner Moeller. You know, I'm one to always be in favor of workshops and bringing people in and listening to them. And I appreciate your comments. If we can provide that kind of information to them regarding cost and what it looks like if you come into the city. I don't know if anyone has ever done that. Can we do that and get that information out to them and first and see what their appetite is? And then if we need to go on and have a workshop and have people come in because they need further explanation, I don't see any harm in that. I really don't want to put a lot of energy into it because I think it's really a hard nut to crack. However, I'm always willing to try and willing to listen to the public.
Yeah, sorry, I was pushing the wrong place. I'm going to suggest, and this isn't on our agenda, so I don't want to get into the specifics of what we know and what we don't know, but rather than discuss workshop, what I'd like to suggest is that perhaps, whether it's an ad hoc committee or staff, schedule a meeting, particularly between the county and the city of Napa, so that we can discuss the framework of what has worked, what hasn't worked. We also have a process that we're pretty familiar with where applicants come in and request an annexation of a particular property, and then it becomes very difficult to ask their surrounding neighbors to do that. So rather than focus on having staff prepare a workshop and go to the public, I think we would be better served to have a meeting or maybe a couple of meetings between staff, City of Napa, the county, and any other city jurisdictions that have islands that they're tackling. I'm not aware, that I don't believe American Canyon has a significant number of islands, because I think, you know, there are a few other issues that I think we want to discuss in terms of why this, you know, hasn't become something of interest to the residents who actually live in those islands, and why we may want to encourage it or move it forward. It makes sense in terms of what we do, which is orderly development, right? You know, we all look at maps and we say, you know, it would make sense for those areas to be included in the jurisdiction that surrounds them for a lot of reasons. But I think we would be better served to start with some smaller discussions rather than jump directly to a workshop.
So thank you for bringing that up, because you gave half of my speech. But when this came up a couple, 3-4 years ago, I know I had a lot of discussions with Brendan, and ultimately found out that the difference between the county and the city from the homeowners was actually not significant. What was significant, and I think you mentioned it, was that you have water and sewer and sidewalks and lights. The city would be putting a lot of money into that. And where would they get that money? Would they want the county to reimburse them, as opposed to, you know, having the homeowner do that? So my recollection is that was where the issue was. And when people were asked, because there were some people who were very adamant, and they were going around with little questionnaires. There were some people who said, yes, I want to vote, but I want to have my chickens, or I want to have my, you know, my well, or whatever it was. It was just very, you know, mixed. But I actually think the real financials are going to come between the county and the city, because the city is going to say, sure, I want annex, but guess what? I don't have streetlights. You know, I get flooded because there's really no good sewer and water connections. So that's just my perspective on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, say that I'm enjoying this discussion. I think it's a good discussion because we talk about islands quite a bit. We've done a lot of work on it, and we seem to always be stalemated. I'd love to see something, maybe, and we have people, we put it on the agenda and have people come in here. But how do we get them in here to discuss it? So we don't have to plan a whole workshop, but we add it to the agenda to get people in to talk about that. So do we put out a thing and basically say, this is what we're going to do, get them all angry up, and then they come in here and we, no. But how do we get them here? That's the thing. How are we going to get this information to people who may not want to read it? If it comes in their water bill or whatever, are they going to pay any attention to it? So to me, that is the question.
I just wanted to reflect that this is obviously something that we need to discuss at another meeting, but agendize in a way that we could have at least we can have the discussion, and it can be agendized as a discussion so that the public can come if they wish. But because at some point we will be dealing with the Big Ranch Road, Rosewood Lane annexation, I mean, that's going to bring up this notion of resulting in the creation of new islands and this idea of orderly development. And I think this is something we all need to get our heads around, and there are probably members of the public who do. And while there may be, pretty, hard and fast opinions for people who live in those islands that we know about, that have been around forever in the city of Napa, these would be new. So this is a whole new potential group of people who may not have any idea what this means. So the discussion's going to have to continue anyway, because it's going to end up before us again at some point. So I would say, something in a meeting doesn't have to be a workshop. It can just be a discussion that we have, and the public, of course, would always be welcome to come and comment.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I like that idea of having an agendized item. I hear what you're saying. We want to make sure that people have access to the information. And Commissioner Painter, you make the point that a lot of this, and I think Ms. Khan, you made this point too, where the sticking point may be actually between the city and the county because of those questions. So I think maybe a future agenda item includes setting up an ad hoc that's just to begin a conversation to say, hey, city, what are you hearing from residents? What are your concerns? And we can branch it out to other cities as need be, but that gives some flexibility to that ad hoc and also doesn't ask a lot of staff at this moment. Rather, there's a reporting back mechanism as well. So I like this point of this is coming down the pike at us in these future items.
Commissioner Oro?
Yeah, thank you. I want to echo what Commissioner Chair Leary said, that, it is up to the landowners. I understand that and respect that, but as the newest person here and somebody who's been watching LAFCO from an arm's length, this whole island thing is the most curious thing that I want to know about and see. And, from a common sense perspective, oftentimes it's like, why isn't it part of this, or why isn't it part of that? And I think there's a general confusion generally, and I know there's a lot more in Napa than there is in American Canyon. I'm agreeing where I think this conversation is headed, and I think Commissioner Gallagher summed it up in a way. There is stuff. So when I was reading this thick, long packet, it's probably not the thickest one that you guys have given out, but it was pretty good. There's all that future work is a lot of island work, and it's going to come up to us soon. And rather than try to create more work for ourselves to understand it, maybe there's a natural point in time before we head into a lot of that work that we have a robust discussion about that involves all the interested parties, agendize it, bring people in, and take it from there.
Thank you. That's where I was going. That's what I brought up, that we have it at a regular meeting. We invite people in, and hopefully they'll show up, and I just think maybe they will. We have a hook to it. Any other comment?
Staff has a comment.
Yes.
Perhaps a suggestion, I could bring an item at the next meeting, April 7th. That would be an item to give you all an overview of the islands. It won't be a full-blown, deep-level discussion, but it'll give you the opportunity to get more educated and assign an ad hoc committee that would then go from there to work with staff to go a little bit deeper and see where it takes us. If that's something the commission could agree to, I'd be happy to bring an item to the next meeting.
Comments, commissioners?
Let's
Sounds
do it.
good. All right, yeah. Yes, sounds good.
I like that idea. One suggestion I might have is that we reach out to our local reporters to mention that we're going to have that item, because having them put something in the newspaper about that might be useful if people are willing to
Right.
entertain that.
All right, thank you very much.
Even Vision 2050 might even consider that.
Mm-hmm. All right, so what direction do you want on this, on item B, strategic? is-
Well, in an attempt to summarize what I think I heard from the commission is that the commission's comfortable with staff continuing to work on the Napa Sanitation District study with a tentative goal of having a presentation at our June commission meeting
Yes.
on that. No strategic plan scheduling just yet. No island workshop yet, but instead we'll have an April 7th discussion about that and get the ball rolling. What else? Meet with Senator Cabaldon and discuss the California Forever plan, which our staff has been completely in tune with that since day one. We've been tracking it and tried to bring it forward to LAFCO at a certain point, but that was a bit cart before the horse at that time. So let's see, if I have also meet with CPUC and state and other regional players in the world of water systems to continue building, to start building good relationships and make sure we're all educated about each other's roles. And also another to-do list item is to reach out to the newer Board of Soups and city council members throughout the county, help them with the education piece so they're aware of LAFCO, know how we work. And so now that, I believe, is those are all the action items I have written down. Did I miss anything?
There's a lot of good LAFCO training, LAFCO 101 already free to us as members on the LAFCO website. So some new supervisors, sometimes they might want to, on their own time, look at that or meet with you. So just an option.
And I would recommend what I did when I first came on the commission was I had Bill Shyatt come on down to our council and meet, and we had a workshop a little. So I think that I would recommend that for everyone, that we reach out, and there are a number of people out there who could come and talk with your commission or council about LAFCO. So I would make that recommendation.
Yeah, he's dead.
So, Brandon, Mr. Freeman?
Well, I don't know that there was any action that
Right.
a formal action that needs to be taken. Looking to council, anything there that requires a vote?
Nope.
Nope, just a discussion, yes. All right, so moving on to item D. Consider adopting resolution amending budget policy and policy on conducting commission meetings and business.
Well, thank you, Chairman Leary. This item was created with help from an ad hoc policy committee. The policy committee is comprised of Commissioners Ramos and Gallagher. Thank you for meeting with me on January 21st. And we agreed to bring forward recommended amendments to 2 policies as described in the staff report and shown with tracked changes in attachments 3 and 4. These The policies with the recommended amendments are the budget policy and the policy on conducting commission meetings and business. The highlights of the recommended amendments would be to, we would reduce the commission's undesignated / unreserved fund balance, also referred to as our reserves, to 10% of budgeted expenditures, which would recognize the lack of emergencies that LAFCO deals with and the lack of LAFCO authority to declare an emergency. We would also be switching from Rosenberg's Rules of Order to Robert's Rules of Order for conducting commission meetings, which is more common with other local government agencies. So it would seem to make sense to, rather than confuse you commissioners and have you try to figure out a different set of rules, just follow the ones you're already accustomed to, which work well. And the last big change would be to change the criteria that determines when a commissioner earns a stipend for attending meetings or other activities related to LAFCO business. And a quick note that some of you may have caught that the staff report, it's not perfect. There's the word / is spelled out. That was a dictation issue that wasn't caught in our proofreading, and also could have better described the last bullet point when we're talking about earning commissioner stipends. And so apologies for the lack of perfection there, but in the future we'll be a little more careful. And so with all of this in mind, the recommended actions are for the commission to adopt the draft resolutions included as attachments 1 and 2, and that would formally amend those 2 policies. These actions can be taken under separate motion or combined into one motion, depending on the commission's preference. The policy committee is here today, and I'm sure would be happy to help answer any questions the commission may have. Thank you.
Policy committee, would you like to speak?
I think it's all spelled out pretty well. I think if anyone has any questions or concerns, let us know and we can, elaborate on our thought process.
All right, well, thank you. I want to say something regarding the change in Robert's rule in Rosenberg. There was a meeting, I guess a month ago, and it was interesting with this heated debate, and then people realized, well, I use these rules, Rosenberg, and well, I use Robert. So there was this confusion and things. So I think getting on the same page would help. So I'm definitely in favor of that. Yeah.
Chair, if I may, I'd like to add a few words regarding a few of the changes aside from Robert's Rules of Orders. We went ahead and declared a roll call vote on hybrid meetings. Just in the prior iteration, hybrid meetings and teleconference meetings were not really anticipated, it seems like, but the world has changed post-2020, so we wanted to reflect that as an option. Specifically, I believe it's page 16 of the attachment on the actual rules on the commissioner's stipends. We did have some deletions here, and I wanted to share a little bit about the reasoning behind our recommendation. One of them on B, it says meetings of standing or ad hoc committees. One of the reasons why I want to recommend that ad hoc committees not receive a stipend is that ad hoc committees are not restricted to Brown Act noticing requirements. So there actually is no parameters as to how many times an ad hoc committee can meet or should meet. And I find that there is a lot of lack of accountability and transparency in that until after the fact when the ad hoc committee does, in fact, report back. So just to be clear, I do not expect to be compensated for my ad hoc committee work with Supervisor Gallagher to make these recommendations. The next one, attendance on the annual conference. I looking at regional bodies that I serve on, attending conferences through those regional bodies when compensated by when those trips are paid for by the body that is sending you, there is no attendance stipend. Look, it's work. We're all called upon it. You do it if you can. You're already getting your the hotel and your meals and everything else paid, I really just find it, I feel burned by saying I'm going to also pay you $150 on top of that. So I don't think that that's necessary. The same happens with LAFCO. And part of the reason is if you are a designee to LAFCO, this body has no accountability as to when LAFCO meets and how many times. And so, again, that accountability back to Napa LAFCO, I use that as a foundation for the recommended changes. On the trainings and classes and activities, you know, the part where it says, you know, with prior authorization, again, we're all required to do trainings. We're required to do our ethics trainings, our sexual harassment prevention trainings, and substantive trainings as well. I find that that's simply just part of the job. And really, the stipends are not about compensation. I understand that, but I also don't think that we need to add more on top of this. The next one was we recommended the stipends be a maximum of 3 stipends per month. Because we are an entity that meets every other month, the fact that someone would have 3 stipends already tells me that there must be a problem that we're addressing if we have to hit that. Now, we did have that. We had 2 meetings during budget time, and that seems reasonable. More than 3 would signal we have a problem. But I think that in and of itself, given that we are compensated in our appointing authorities, for those of us that already are electeds, I think that's sufficient. The next one was on commissioner reimbursements for expenses. Just to make this consistent, since we do have pass-through expenditure policies through the county, to apply the same policy manual for expenditures and reimbursements that is applicable to the Board of Supervisors. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramos. You know, I sit on the LAFCO board, and I attend conferences, and I've never even considered putting in for reimbursement for attending a board meeting at the conference, or putting in anything for an ad hoc committee. So I just find that I would not do that. So, however, if we want to codify that into our bylaws, I see no problem with that. I think the only when my thought that came to that for me was, as a public member, my role is a little bit different than those who are seated on a council or commission where you were getting an overall for that. So as a public member, it's my dime for whatever I do, unless it's, you know, codified here. So I'm not opposed to any of these changes. And so any other comment from any other commissioners?
I have one minor comment. I'm not opposed to any of the changes either. I think streamlining is good. I think it makes sense. I'm just curious, how long has the stipend been set? I shouldn't be looking at you, I should be looking over here, at $150. And did you consider, as you eliminate things from the list, that maybe just the stipend itself should be looked at?
Great question, Commissioner Painter. I believe this was last increased from 125 to 150. I want to say around 2017 or so. I know it was before 2019. So the last time that policy, or sorry, so this policy is the one on conducting commission meetings and business. That was last amended in June 2018. I know that the stipend was increased to 150 before that. I recall it was then public member Brian Kelly advocating for that pretty strongly. And so that was definitely before 2018. And I think the idea was that we had been set at 125 for a while, and then commissioners were required to be set up in the county system as technically employees so that they could be paid their stipends, your stipends. So you needed to have an employee ID number, and that's taxable income. So we wanted to basically try to eliminate the effect of the tax on that 125 and let you still take home 125 in the end, roughly. But we certainly can look at that amount. This is something that is different throughout the state. You know, just food for thought. Some LAFCOs do not offer a stipend at all.
Commissioner Gallagher?
Yeah, I think we didn't discuss whether or not there should be a change in the stipend. We look at the stipends we receive for a lot of other local and regional committees and commissions, and it's very much in keeping with basically between $100 and $200 a meeting. So it seems to be right in there with the other committees, commissions, and boards that many people sit on.
If I may, Chair, when we do look at, I have the list here. For example, the Association of Bay Area Governments is 150. The Bay Area Air District is 200. MTC, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, is 100. And Napa Sanitation is 261. And the San Francisco Bay Conservation Development Commission is 100. And we have to go all the way to San Francisco for that, for that 100, right? I don't see it as incredibly, again, it's stipends, not compensation. So I think that category is on the lower part. If it is the commission's desire, in considering that public members are disproportionately affected, I would be willing for the committee to go back and look at a recommended change policy where the public member has a different compensation, has a different stipend, my apologies, than the elected members. But I wouldn't, certainly at this point, just given what I know, I wouldn't make a recommendation to change the stipend right now across the board for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramos. With that being said, I completed a year on the Cal LAFCO board, and I have not submitted until today for any reimbursement or for any of the meetings I attend because I just don't think about it. Well, it's not the amount, it's not that important, but today I submitted for my last two meetings. So it's not for me as a public member or a commissioner about the amount of money or whatever, because most of the time I don't think about it. And maybe that's who I am. Maybe that's why I'm not rich. However, I do appreciate your comments, Commissioner Ramos, and I probably will submit those more regularly because I do sometimes have to travel for those and those kinds of things, and even whether it's driving to Sacramento or whatever. So thank you very much. I don't see any problems with most of this, with any of it, really.
Just one item I would add, and that is, I know we don't normally hit 3 hours, but the people in the parking lot mark your tires. And so I've had situations where I've had to go out and move my car. Because that's more than probably $150. So we don't have any ability, I know you guys do, but I'm just telling you, that's, fortunately we're not running into 3 hours. But that's the only thing that I run into. And just even coming to regular supervisor meetings, you keep looking at your watch, but this meeting's running late, and then we all take turns moving our cars. So
Chair.
if there's any way of having that noted somehow that we don't have to get paid on it.
Chair, we will make sure on the county side that we have parking placards for all commissioners on LAFCO meeting days. Our planning commissioners have that. I thank you for making us aware of that. I was not aware that that was something. You shouldn't have to deal with that. And if there is a parking we can make sure that we refer that. It is official business. And just to be clear, this is only in regards to the stipend. We're only making recommendations in charge of the stipend. Expenses most definitely should be processed. I think this is just one of my little personal soapboxes. I think the public really does need to know how much it costs for us to do the jobs that we do. And that is our contribution in terms of transparency so that the public can know what they are getting. And so if you have your lunches, if you have your parking, if you have your mileage, I think that those absolutely need to come through because that is a cost of doing business. All we're really recommending here is that there is no meeting stipend associated with that work. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other comments? So what, Eve? Oh, okay, all right. So let's see, you want a resolution? And
Looking for a motion and
yeah.
a vote. I would recommend taking both items together under one motion, unless someone has a reason not to.
I'll make that motion, and I want to say thanks to the ad hoc committee for working on this.
Yes. Do I have a second? Second. All right. Motion has been moved and second. We'll take a roll call, not a roll call, just a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, let's see. Item C, consider appointments to the Ad hoc Budget Committee and Ad hoc Legislative Committee. All right. Discussion. Staff?
Thank you, Chairman Leary. So keeping this item short and sweet, the commission is being asked to appoint 2 members, could be regular and or alternate members, to the Ad hoc Budget Committee for fiscal year 2025-26 and 2 members to the Ad hoc Legislative Committee. And very quickly, the Budget Committee will be assisting staff in presenting a preparing a proposed budget, which would be presented at the April meeting, and then a final budget to be presented at the June meeting. Budget Committee will also look at our work program and our fee schedule and help with those as needed. The Legislative Committee will assist staff in legislative activities throughout 2025, which is typically limited to making recommendations on legislative bills affecting LAFCOs. Typically, we would support, oppose, or watch any bills of interest. Occasionally, there may be a proposed bill that we want to either propose ourselves or work on in some other capacity, but that's rare. Not much more to say about this item, but staff is happy to add details or answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, any discussion from commissioners? Any comments? Any recommendations? For either?
I'm going to remove myself from anything until I get a couple meetings underneath my belt. I'll come back around and joining any subcommittees.
Okay, let me just scratch your name off. I had you on there.
You mean to throw it to the top of the list?
Yeah. Anyone like to step forward?
Can we just know who is on the committees now?
Oh, okay.
I think that helps.
So currently, those 2 committees don't technically exist yet, or if they do, they don't have members. But last year we had Commissioners Moeller and Leary serving on the Budget Committee, and it was Commissioners Cottrell and Painter serving on the Legislative Committee.
I'm not interested on the budget, so I'm not sure where this seat's going to go in May, so I'll abstain from both.
And I think Commissioner Painter, if I remember hearing correctly, you were interested in joining the budget committee. Is that true?
I'm happy to serve on either committee. Quite honestly, I've served on the legislative committee, I think, since the first year I came on to LAFCO, even as an alternate. So you get past this meeting, but next time, however it works out, I would be happy to to serve on either. The budget committee would be something new for me, so that could be interesting, but
Well, I'd like to work with you. We
On the
have to
budget?
work together, yes.
let's do it.
All right,
Okay.
here we go.
I was
I'm still on policy.
You're
so
still on
I'm good.
policy?
I'm still on
good.
policy too. And I don't know how long that's going to go, I guess.
We got one more round. We got the MSR
Yeah,
part and a few
so-
others.
Like to
I'm happy
finish
to.
that.
I'm happy to stay on the legislative committee. Commissioner Khan, do you want to?
Yes.
Do you have an interest?
All right.
All right. Okay. All right, Commissioner Oro, we see you,
Yes.
and we'll call
Yeah.
on you.
We're
I'll
watching.
be ready to engage.
All right.
Great. So I'll make a motion that we appoint Commissioners Painter and Chair Leary to serve on the Budget Committee, and myself and Commissioner Khan to serve on the Legislative Committee.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you very much. All right, let's move on with the agenda. So we have item 9, Executive Officers Report. All right, Brendan?
I'll try to be quick with this one in the interest of time. Lots of activity and changes at the statewide association, LAFCO, and perhaps an update will be provided by one of our 2 representatives on the LAFCO board sitting at the dais. And then coming back to the local level, we are exploring staffing options as there is no immediate end in sight to the lingering absence in a very key position. So looking at a lot of options there. Probably nothing immediate going to happen, but it will happen. And then tomorrow, I'll be up in St. Helena giving a presentation to their Rotary Club. They needed a speaker, and so I'll be doing a What is LAFCO for them. And then I'm looking forward to continuing to work with our new chair, Mr. Leary, throughout the year, and our brand new alternate city member, David Oro, who brings fresh energy and perspectives that will certainly be valuable to LAFCO as an organization. And that's all I've got for now.
All right, well, thank you. Well, Marge, I can defer to you. You've been on LAFCO longer than I have, so do you have any remarks or regarding?
Well, I think what Brendan's referring to is the LAFCO executive officer resigned about a few weeks ago, and so we'll be sending out, we have an interim executive officer, and they'll be looking for, doing a search for a new executive officer soon, or director. Yeah.
And we'll be meeting next week just to discuss some of this. I think the 7th or the 10th, we have a
There's a board meeting
board
next
meeting.
Friday.
Friday, yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. All right, let's moving on to commissioner comments, requests for future agenda items. Any?
I just have a comment. I will be absent for the April 7th meeting, so Commissioner Gallagher, I hope that you can sit up here.
I have a comment, and while I was looking and reading some of the reports, I tried to find if there was a map on where the water pipes are. Because I'm reading that one report, and it's like, so the city of Napa bypasses Yountville's water service district to serve someone up close to Oakville. And I'm just curious where all of these pipes.
Oh, actually, the city of Napa pipe goes through our jurisdiction.
It does.
Because every now and then our system goes down, and so we have to go on Napa water.
Right.
City water.
Yeah. So I looked into the water report, and I couldn't find any map of the existing water services that each jurisdiction have, because how far does the Napa pipe go up valley?
It goes all the way up to Calistoga.
Okay.
And beyond. So it runs all the way up the valley.
Yeah, I'd like to see a map of that, just in terms it would help in our discussions, I think, in terms of other annexations and things, of people hooking up, just where the pipes are and who's the best provider to do that. I don't know how far Yountville's pipes go.
Yountville pipes are only in the town of Yountville.
And then across to the Champagne, right? Don't you serve them?
No,
No, don't?
we take their wastewater only.
Wastewater. Oh, so they get their water from
They have a well,
a well.
and actually we have a emergency contract with them if
Their water
we
goes.
don't have city of Napa water. But
Yes.
yeah, they're all a little complicated.
Right.
And when the city of Napa ran all the water lines up years and years ago, all the way up to Calistoga, there were some people that wouldn't give easements, and so they were
Right.
able to hook up
Yeah.
in exchange for the easement. Good old boy handshake deals back in the day. So it's complicated.
Yes. Well, I'd like to see a map of that so we can get some clear understanding. So if that's something that can be done.
I would think that Joy would have that easily accepted.
Yeah.
We could probably email it out to all of us,
Yeah.
unless you wanted to have a special
No, I don't want a
presentation.
special meeting. No, I'd just like to be able to access it when it.
Yeah,
when
well,
it's-
actually, it's interesting that you mention that, because there's a hotel that's being built like halfway between Yountville and Napa, and people are going like, why are they on city water? So there's a lot of things like that. There's a lot of these offshoots.
Right.
And so people are always confused about that. But in any case, I think it would be good to at least see that schematic.
Yes. Brendan?
Just adding to the discussion that the 2020 countywide water and wastewater study does have maps of all of the local jurisdictions and their water service and sewer service areas. So if there are any outside services, those are mapped, but they're admittedly very difficult to find.
Right, yes.
I'm struggling now to find them, but they are in here. I personally created most or all of them, so I know they are there. but
I see the jurisdictions, but I didn't see the lines, actually.
I'd be happy to find the maps and email
right.
them out. What would be best? I email to the full commission with the maps.
Well, I think the more interesting question that you may want to ask is the special service connections from the city of Napa. I find those fascinating.
Oh,
versus
well, you can
versus the main line.
Yeah, well, you can add that to it, Margie.
I was going to suggest if Chair Leary is making a request, that maybe building on that to make a request that I think having Joy come spend 15 minutes. I know I've spent time with her, and that is so helpful. So I think a map plus Joy as a guide, and that way we have an agendized discussion item and we can ask questions, would be great. And I don't think that would take too much time.
Great suggestion. Thank you. All right.
I'll reach out.
All right. Next order of business, adjournment.
So moved.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. We're adjourned to our next meeting on Monday, April 7th, right here.
Next time you might.
Right. All right. Great discussion.